Alright, welcome back. So now I'm going to draw in the forelock. I did the ears in part 1 and now we're going to finish off this study by completing the forelock. So if you look at the reference photo, you can see that the forelock is a lot grayer than the ears. So the insides of the ear have a lot of brown in them, and I do see some brown in the forelock, but it's a lot of gray as well. So it's a gray mixed with brown, mixed with some lighter streaks of hair as well. So I want to use a combination of multiple grays and a brown and then ivory as well. So I'm going to take cold gray 1, cold gray 4, some Payne's gray, ivory, and then for the brown let's take burnt umber. So let's do it with these 4 colors. 5 colors, I can't count. 5 colors. Alright, so what I'm going to start off with is to take my medium cold gray. With that I'm going to map out the direction of the hair. So I'm going to start here at the top of the forelock. Make sure that your pencil is very sharp. With that I'm going to map out the shape a little bit, draw in the direction of the hairs. So you can see that especially at the top here, the hair has a bluish tone to it. So that's why I choose to use the cold grays instead of the warm grays. The warmer grays have more of a yellow tone to them. So it's very important to firstly focus on the direction of the hairs. Where do you see the separated clumps, and where do you see the shadows? So I'm just using light strokes. I'm not drawing the hairs in one move either, just short strokes. Twisting my pencil a little bit so that I get that frizzy texture. Here at the bottom we have a darker shadow, so I'm already mapping that shape out a bit with the same color, just very lightly so I know where it goes. And my approach when it comes to drawing hair like this in colored pencil is quite different from doing it in graphite, because in graphite you can just put in some strokes and blend it out and then pull out the highlights with an eraser, but with colored pencil you can't really do that. So I have to draw around the white hairs. We of course also indented some, so I don't have to worry about that, but I do have to mostly draw around the light hairs when using my darker colors. And to get that soft look with a lot of depth in it, you also have to work in a lot of layers, and more layers than when you work in graphite. Drawing in that shape a bit more here. And here at the ends you can see some brown, so I will add some brown to that later. Alright, and then when you have all the clumps of fur mapped out and the direction of the hairs, it's time to start adding some more depth, some more darkness. So I'm going to take Payne's Grey. And with that I'm going to darken up the darker shadows that I see. So especially here at the top. Payne's Grey is also a bit of a bluish grey. So really nice. It's a color I use a lot. Don't push too hard just yet. We do want to be able to add more tones to the hair. Making sure to draw around that little clump of hair there that is coming from the inside of the ear. I'm keeping it pretty loose for this study. I'm aiming for the right texture, but not for hyper-realism. Keep looking at the reference photo to see where the shadows are. I'm being very random with my strokes. I want this to look really messy in a way. Starting to focus some more on the darker shadows in between the hairs. Darkening up this shadow here, you can see this little indent appearing as well. I really like the indenting technique for drawing flyaway hairs. Don't draw your hairs too straight. They are pretty frizzy. Keep twisting my pencil so that I get a sharp edge every time. Alright, now you can see that the whole forelock is pretty blue looking. When I look at the reference photo, I can actually see some purple in there as well. First, I want to add some brown. And then we can also decide to add some violet to get that purpley tone. But first let's add some brown just to see what it looks like. So this is burnt umber. I'm going to glaze that on top, especially here at the bottom of the forelock, as the hair is starting to get a bit more brown there. And that's probably just dirt. So I'm really lightly glazing, and with that I can change the hue of the color a little bit more. Alright, I still want to add some purple, so I'm going to take Kaput Morton Violet, 263. I'm going to add that here at the top, just glazing again. You can see it changes the tone of the hair right away. Also going to darken up the shadows with that. And then I'm glazing some more on top. Also right here on the other side, darkening up the shadows. Alright, so now it's time to really darken up some of those shadows. So I'm going in with the darker warm gray now to 275. Now I want to make sure that the shadows don't get too blue. So it's all about getting a nice balance into that hair. So usually you can find a lot of different colors in gray. You don't want to use only gray for gray fur, because that will make it look very flat. So I try to use as many different colors in a piece of fur as I can, or as I can see at least. I'm just jumping around and gradually build up these layers. So here in the center we have that wider piece of hair, so make sure to draw around that. We're going to fill that in later. Okay, so now that we've added the warm gray and the purple and the brown, we have toned down the blue in the mane. So now I actually want to bring back some of that blue by adding some darker blue. And I think I'm going to be using a dark indigo for that, I think. It's actually starting to storm outside now. Maybe you can hear it through the camera, I hope not. But it's actually starting to rain so hard. Anyway, I'm going to take dark indigo. I'm going to place that only in the places where I see some blue. So that's here at the top, especially. Again, lightly glazing it on top of the hairs we put in. Taking it down a bit. Making some hairs stick out. So now basically all the base colors are in, and now we can start refining the details. So I want to make this change in direction a bit more prominent, a bit more detailed. Taking Payne's Gray again now. Going to take some more time to define some of these shadows in between the hairs as well. Now I'm going to add more pressure. A bit more blue as well, maybe? maybe a bit more purple. And then switching to walnut brown to complete these ends a little bit more. Alright, and now with ivory I'm going to lightly fill in those lighter pieces of fur as well, pieces of mane. Because, as you know, white fur is never white. Give that a bit of a tone to it. Alright, so now we're not finished yet. What I want to do now is do some darkening up here and there. I'm taking black now. And with that I'm going to darken up some shadows in between the hairs. So they are pretty small strokes actually. Just the tiny shadows where the hairs are overlapping. To get some more depth here as well in this center area. I've been thinking of going back into live streaming soon, so I have upgraded my internet connection and my hardware, so I should be able to live stream now here on Patreon as well. So what I thought would be fun is to do this forehead area and the forehead in graphite as well, and to do that in a live stream. So you can also see how I do the fur direction on the forehead of the horse. So maybe that would be fun to try in the upcoming weeks. Alright, so a little more light gray now. I feel like some areas can be a little bit darker. Also, I add some light hairs within the lighter streaks of hair. And just do a little bit more glazing. Okay, so I don't want to get into too much detail here. What I want to do now is do some burnishing. So I want to get rid of the paper texture a bit, and for that I'm going to use the Caran d'Ache Luminance, the white one. Make sure that it's sharp. With that I'm going to burnish mostly the parts that have a lot of layers on them. So the top area mostly. When burnishing, also make sure to follow the direction of the hairs. And I'm going to burnish the darker streaks of hair. Just go over them. I don't want to get rid of the paper texture completely, because I actually kind of like it in textures like this, so with mane, as they are kind of frizzy looking anyway, so having some paper texture show through actually helps with creating that effect. Okay, finally a bit more purple. You can really make it as detailed as you want. Let me know if you find these kind of videos helpful, so showing the same subject in two mediums. Let me know if you want to see that more often with other kinds of subjects as well. I can also do it with eyes, of course. Alright, so now finally I want to finish this area, so the back side of the ear and a bit of the side of the forehead, because that can use some more shading. So I want to darken up this area completely next to the ear. I'm using Cold Grey 233 for that. So the fur actually goes upwards and then outwards, and then it goes all the way down to the side. You can see that here as well. And then black. With that I'm going to darken up darkest areas here. So even when you're just doing a study, getting the values in there is the most important thing. Some darker hairs. Actually going to darken up this little piece of fur as well, like that, with walnut brown that was. And a little bit more shading here. And then I'm calling this study finished. Oh wait, I forgot. I forgot to do a little bit of mane here. Let's do that. This is Payne's Grey. A little bit of purple. Could put more than violet. So you can see that with that purple you can immediately balance the blue of the Payne's Grey. I'm not being super detailed with this. Taking some black for some shadow. And then adding some flyaway hairs on the sides. Little bit of burnishing. Let's see if I got the shape right now of that ear. Alright, so I'm calling this finished now. It's just a quick study, but we did get the depth and the textures in there, so that's what counts. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Any suggestions for more tutorials like this, let me know as well. And then I'll see you in the next tutorial.